That was Dr. Nuris Lampe. Our third lecture for session 2, it's all about graceful aging. She is a fellowship-trained, board-certified physician in anti-aging, regenerative and functional medicine through the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. She has been a practicing physician, owner and medical director for multiple medical practices and medi-spas with a focus on patient-centered, evidence-based medicine, combining principles of Eastern and Western medicine. She's contributed to establishing treatment protocols and has collaborated on nutraceutical formulations throughout her career. She has been featured speaker in PBS documentaries, in the media, and at medical meetings throughout the United States and abroad. She's also known as an international expert in the field of anti-aging, regenerative, and functional medicine. To talk to us today about addressing chronic inflammation, a key to optimal health, please welcome Dr. Kristen Miller.
Hello, I'm Dr. Kristen Miller, and I'm very happy to be here with you all to speak about ways to impact aging gracefully. What has become more apparent in the ongoing medical literature is that chronic smoldering inflammation left unchecked is a major contributor to morbidity and the negative effects of aging, and in fact, accelerates the aging process. We all know people who look and feel younger than their calendar age, and people who appear much older than their years with significant health challenges. The patients we see range from one end of this spectrum to the other. It is our job as health practitioners to understand how to evaluate for the underlying factors that contribute to accelerated aging so our patients can meet their goal for optimal health at any age. This session will set out to assist you in identifying the physiologic factors that can contribute to the development of chronic inflammation. We will discuss this link to disease and the advancing of the aging process. We will identify diagnostic techniques, and we will use this information to target therapies to intervene in this process and support mechanisms for homeostasis in the body. Senoinflammation, or age-related pro-inflammatory signaling, consists of the upregulation of pro-inflammatory gene expression and the downregulation of metabolic pathways. This involves senescent cell signaling, endoplasmic reticulum functional changes, and changes in mitochondrial efficiency, to name a few factors. Let's begin by focusing on the following contributing factors to accelerated aging. Gut microbiome imbalance and the subsequent changes within the body that lead to decline in function. Nutrient deficiencies and the impacts upon the metabolic and detoxification pathways. Environmental toxicities and oxidative stress with increased toxic burden, poor dental hygiene and its contribution to chronic inflammation, and lifestyle choices, including deconditioning, obesity, stress, and addiction, and their effects upon immune function, metabolism, inflammation, and aging. Our bodies, by design, have mechanisms in place to maintain healthy homeostasis as we age. However, there are molecular factors that contribute to accelerated aging. The process of autophagy plays an essential role in cells by removal of dysfunctional intracellular proteins. As we age, this response declines, contributing to the chronic activation of inflammasomes. These are intracellular sensors for detecting and signaling the need for pro-inflammatory cytokines. This sets up a defective intracellular regulatory response, which exacerbates underlying inflammatory signaling pathways, contributing to dysregulation of metabolism, insulin resistance, endoplasmic reticulum stress, lipid accumulation, and advancing the aging process. Research has revealed evidence that aging senescent cells can significantly interfere with normal cellular functions and promote inflammation and pathology. We know that cellular senescence increases with aging, which induces large increases in the senescent cell secretome or SASP factors, which are involved in intracellular signaling. As you can see here, the impact on pro-inflammatory cytokine, chemokine, and other regulatory factors is striking. The subsequent regulatory changes are far-reaching, impacting gene transcription to be upregulated in pro-inflammatory cytokine to cytokine receptor interactions, chemokine signaling pathways, and in the nuclear factor kappa beta signaling pathway, very, very important pathway. Pro-inflammatory signaling increases while downregulation occurs in several important metabolic pathways. This process leads, in fact, to a multi-level effect on signaling factors and the pathways that regulate subclinical chronic inflammation and metabolism. When left unchecked, with pro-inflammatory signaling dominating, we begin to see symptoms of morbidity and a number of chronic diseases develop. We call this pathological aging. Our goal is to take measures to intervene in this process and promote longevity with postponed physiological aging. So, what determines where we fall on the spectrum of physiological and pathological aging? The balance between the degree of oxidative stress and homeostatic mechanisms plays an important role. Oxidative stress in greater proportion than the ability to counteract it leads to improper gene regulation and genomic DNA damage. This response is even more pronounced in aging cells. It leads to a pro-inflammatory environment, exerting stress on the intracellular organelles, body tissues, and body systems, causing metabolic dysregulation and feeding the fire of inflammatory signaling. This becomes a vicious cycle that contributes to pathological aging. When we balance this with mediating therapies, the process can be impacted to delay or even forego pathological aging and the occurrence of aging-associated diseases. Another area of focus for intervening therapies is the human microbiome, and we're going to focus here on the gut microbiome in particular. With a surface area of the gut exceeding 943,000 cubic centimeters, containing a neural network of over 1 million cells, and populating over 100 trillion microbes, this is a vast environmental interface. It is key for us to understand its contributing and modulating roles in chronic inflammatory processes, and therefore its role in targeted therapies. Many factors can affect the microbiome and in turn impact signaling mechanisms for the immune system, brain neurotransmitter balance, hormonal signaling, as well as health of the mucosal lining itself, affecting digestion, absorption, and detoxification. Unhealthy diets, such as those high in saturated fats, sugars, glycosylated end products, and lacking prebiotic fiber and nutrients, can quickly change the microbiome and promote imbalance with overgrowth of pathogenic species and subsequent changes in the intestinal epithelium and submucosa. Stress, with its hormonal fluctuations, also affects the microbiome, neurotransmitter balance, and inflammation, often leading to a constant battle with weight gain, anxiety, and other neuropsychiatric symptoms we see in the United States. This is becoming more and more of an issue throughout the world. Widespread use of antibiotics can also produce long-standing changes in the body, leading to selection of superbugs, destroyed gut microbalance, poor recolonization, and slow gut transit with increased toxic load time. An impaired gut lining can contribute to inflammatory bowel disease, allergies, autoimmunity, and persistent triggers for inflammatory cytokine signaling throughout the body, throughout the system. Dysbiosis can set off a cascade of neuroinflammation that links to the development of dementia by way of triggering chronically activated microglia to release inflammatory cytokines, cleave amyloid precursor proteins, and form beta amyloid, a mechanism of Alzheimer's dementia. This neuroinflammation, chronic neuroinflammation, causes degeneration and further inflammatory mediator exposure, and thus the neuroinflammatory process tends to keep repeating. A major link to developing degenerative neurological disease is this chronic neuroinflammatory state. As you can see, when underlying processes behind chronic inflammation continue unchecked, morbidity worsens, quality of life worsens, and accelerated symptoms of aging result. Persistent underlying inflammation affects nearly every tissue in the body, often going undetected without specialized testing until significant cellular damage has already occurred. And even when symptoms do present themselves, underlying imbalances may continue to go unaddressed unless these processes are tested and identified. We don't want to merely manage symptoms. We want to treat the underlying process to change the path and enhance a healthy lifespan. Let's look at some diagnostic methods to help qualify and quantify subclinical chronic inflammation in our patients. Analyzing gut health is a key step in this process. There are a number of laboratories who offer testing. I've listed some important components of testing here that will identify the degree of microbiome diversity, assess for pathogenic overgrowth and inflammatory markers, and identify digestive and absorptive function of the gut. These things you must know for recommending the best treatment plan for your patient. I have included here the need also for proper physical examination, including periodontal exams, because periodontal disease can be an often overlooked trigger for ongoing chronic inflammation, and it's a known risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Now, you recall we've covered senoinflammation associated with the aging process and additional factors that contribute to subclinical smoldering inflammation. So, further diagnostic testing is indicated to assess the degree and to focus therapies. I recommend a full nutritional evaluation with metabolic, neurotransmitter, toxic elements, and oxidative stress profiles. And I've listed some of these here. It's important also to include a detoxification profile. The components of a detox profile vary by laboratory, so be sure to compare what is available in your area. In terms of genetic and immune markers, some testing is available, and I recommend this. It is an area of ongoing research and development, and it shows much promise for future use to drive individualized, customized therapies targeting findings. This is the functional medicine approach to therapies, promoting quality and longevity. It involves a customized approach for each patient based on a comprehensive process, beginning with taking a lifetime inventory of health, social, and environmental history. I've had new patients of mine say they have never before completed such a thorough history. But you must remember, it has taken your patient a lifetime to arrive at their current stage of function and to now walk into your office for help. This is a most important step because this information, along with the symptom survey and your physical exam findings, develops your critical thinking that will focus decision-making for what testing is needed for that particular patient. Now, using the principles we have touched on and the information you have gleaned from your patient, order testing to uncover findings that will guide your therapies. Pay close attention to gut health testing, metabolic and fatty acid testing, and full nutritional analysis, including immune and inflammatory markers, and order hormonal pathways and genomic testing as indicated. Then begin customized therapies based on your findings. Again, pay close attention to the gut and treat accordingly. Correct dysbiosis with appropriate prebiotic and diverse strains of probiotic support. We discussed how important the gut microbiome diversity is. In fact, new studies are identifying whether certain probiotic strains can be protective against contracting COVID due to its symbiotic relationship with immune health. The gut microbiome holds promise for ongoing support of healthy aging in many ways. Calorie restriction is something you need to consider for your patients seeking quality longevity. It is defined as a reduction in daily energy intake of at least 10 to 20% below caloric needs without inducing malnutrition. There are different approaches being utilized, continuous calorie restriction or intermittent fasting schedules, and I recommend you explore the best options with your patient. This has been shown to have a clear positive impact on age-associated inflammation. Calorie restriction exhibits powerful anti-inflammatory and regulatory effects. Now, an option for patients who are unable to comply with a program, including calorie restriction, is to prescribe calorie restriction mimetics, CR mimetics. These are compounds that have the potential to mimic the beneficial effects of calorie restriction without the drastic dietary changes. Examples include resveratrol, metformin, rapamycin, fenofibrate, rosiglitazone, proglitazone, and beta-hydroxybutyrate. Correcting nutrient deficiencies that were found in testing is, of course, a part of therapies. Often, these nutrients are necessary cofactors in every step in the metabolic and immune pathways, down to the subcellular transcriptional level. In addition, the endocannabinoid system is a regulatory system throughout the body, and age-related deficiencies in the on-demand production of our own cannabinoids can also contribute to inflammation and imbalances. I only recommend purified CBD isolate if you are considering this for your patients. So after beginning therapies, follow-up testing can be done in a targeted manner and at intervals to demonstrate the responses to therapies and direct further management. When it comes to your patients, incorporating difficult lifestyle changes and customized diet changes, really take time to educate them on how these therapies will help them. It will significantly improve their compliance. In my practice, I have utilized this approach, as well as pharma-grade quality nutraceuticals at specific dosing based on laboratory findings and pathway step analysis. 100% of my patients improved by following this method. Using functional medicine principles, we take an individualized targeted approach for therapies to intervene in the process to slow physiological aging and to forego pathological aging. Ongoing research and discovery of molecular targets that can therapeutically modulate subclinical age-related inflammation will allow further development of effective tools and therapies to delay physiological aging and prevent the development of age-associated disease processes. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miller. Now for the open forum and question and answer portion, may I call back on their screens Dr. Mike Chan, Dr. Nuris Lampe, and of course Dr. Kristen Miller. My first question is to Dr. Chan. Good afternoon, Professor Chan. Have you heard of oral stem cell supplements from deers, and can you comment on its effectivity if you have? Thank you.
Wonderful question. Now, in 1985, I brought the first placenta to the world from Switzerland. And why I brought placenta capsules to the world is because when I was in Hong Kong and Taiwan, I was seeing a lot of packaging. They say made in Switzerland, made in Germany, and made in France. I come to realize when I go to Switzerland and France later on, there's no such company. They are made in Taiwan, made in China, and made in Hong Kong. So I was telling myself, why don't you bring something which is really made in Switzerland? And that's how I produced placenta and brought to the world, and today we're selling to 80 countries. Now, these are placenta extracts in the capsules. The same things go for the deer, okay? The good part is for our sheep, there has to be SPF animals. That is important. I'm very familiar with the deer, but you have to understand, deer is a wild animal. Deer is not the animal where you have in the lab. You don't keep the deer in the lab. All right, so that is something we have to do. Now, there is no stem cells in any capsules. You only have the peptides in the capsule because it will not survive. The cells cannot be in the capsules. There's no such thing as stem cells in the capsules, but you do have the nutrients of a placenta extracts in the capsules. So the question now will be, you have to use the right placenta. Again, in the case of treatment of cancer, you cannot use placenta because placenta will stimulate the cells. Then the cancer patient